You ever stop and think, what makes you, well, you? I mean, how did your personality, your thoughts, your whole sense of who you are come to be? We're about to dive into the incredible science that actually tries to answer that very question.
Okay, so let's start with a little story. Imagine a toddler, let's call her Priya. She sees a photo of herself and her parents say, "Look, that's you." But she just points at it and says, "That's you." So, what's the magic that happens in her brain to finally make that switch, to go from seeing herself as just another person to realizing, "Wait a minute, that's me." That simple moment is actually a huge leap.
And the field that digs into questions exactly like Priya's, that's developmental psychology. It's basically the scientific story of us, how we grow, how we change, and how we adapt to everything life throws at us, from our very first breath to our last. It's the whole human journey.
Now, when you hear that, you might immediately think it's all about babies and kids, right? You know, those formative years we always hear about? But the truth is, this field has grown up right along with us.
Yep, that's right. Because we're living longer these days, psychologists realize something crucial. Development doesn't just slam on the brakes when you turn 18. They're now just as fascinated by the changes we go through when we're aging, and even how we face the end of our lives. It's the full story, from start to finish.
And what a story it is. We're not just talking about one little piece of life here. Developmental psychologists look at pretty much everything: how our bodies grow, how our brains and thinking get more complex, how our friendships and relationships evolve, and of course, how our personalities and emotions mature. It's all connected. So, to really get how all this works, we've got to look at one of the biggest, most epic debates in all of science. It's a question that has kept people arguing for centuries. Are we born this way, or are we made this way?
In one corner, you had thinkers like René Descartes. He was on Team Nature, arguing that we show up in the world with some knowledge already built in. But in the other corner, you had John Locke, who famously said our minds are a tabula rasa, a total blank slate, and that everything we become is basically written on us by our life experiences. That's Team Nurture.
And of course, the debate didn't stop there. Down the line, you had people like Noam Chomsky, who argued we have an innate knack for language, while others, like Albert Bandura, showed just how much we learn simply by watching and imitating other people. But then, thinkers like Jean Piaget came along and basically said, hey, what if you're all kind of right? He saw it as this complex dance between our genes and our environment.
And that's pretty much where we've landed today. You know, psychologists have mostly moved past that black and white either-or fight. The consensus now is super clear. It's both. Our DNA and our life experiences are constantly interacting to make us who we are. Think of it like this. A kid might be born with genes that make them a little shy. That's nature. But whether they grow up to be a quiet adult or learn to be really outgoing depends a ton on their environment, their family, their school, their friends. That's nurture. You need both to get the full picture.
Okay, so this is way more than just some dusty old academic debate. This knowledge has some seriously cool real-world uses, often in places you'd probably never guess. I mean, sure, there are the jobs that make total sense. It's a no-brainer that knowing this stuff is amazing for teachers, therapists, and even government advisors who help create policies for kids and families. But it also takes people to some really unexpected career paths. I want to show you two of the most surprising and honestly most impactful ways this science gets used, taking it right out of the textbook and into our hospitals and even into our toy boxes. First up, the NICU. That's the Newborn Intensive Care Unit. It is an unbelievably stressful place, not just for the tiny, fragile babies, but for their parents too. Well, developmental psychologists are often a crucial part of the team there, supporting those little ones and helping families through what might be the toughest start to life imaginable.
So what do they actually do? Well, they help parents bond with their baby, which can be really hard with all the machines and wires. They give parents tools to cope with all the stress and anxiety. They use special tests to check on the baby's development. And they even help the family and the hospital staff communicate better. It's incredibly important work. All right, now let's flip the script completely, from the high-stakes world of a hospital to something we've all had: toys. Believe it or not, the big toy companies hire developmental psychologists to help them make better toys. And why would they do that? Because a great toy isn't just fun, it's a tool for learning. Just think about a simple doll. A 1-year-old is going to explore it with their senses, right? They'll poke it, maybe chew on its hand. But a 5-year-old? They're going to use that same doll for pretend play, creating stories, having conversations. A toy designer who gets those developmental stages can make a toy that's way more engaging and even educational for the right age.
So there you go. From that deep, internal moment when little Priya figures out, that's me, all the way to the design of the actual toys she plays with, this science is everywhere. It really does help explain how we become who we are, from the inside out.
But there's one last really critical piece to this puzzle. The source material for this explainer comes from the Open University of Sri Lanka, and it makes a fantastic point. It says that culture plays a massive role in our development, and what we learn from research in, say, the United States, might not apply everywhere else.
And that leaves us with a big final question to chew on. If the way we grow up is so deeply connected to our culture and our corner of the world, does that mean our whole understanding of psychology needs to be different, depending on where we are? It's a really interesting thought. Thanks for joining me on this one.